Okay, and today I want to talk about the future game modes that we might get in Loomian Legacy. We've had the Adventures button since the game's release, and just about everyone has talked about wanting game modes in the future like a Nuzlocke mode or a Randomizer mode. However, I want to go one step further. So just getting into it then, Brick Bronze had a Randomizer mode, although there were just a couple of enforced rules for the game mode specifically, which were your starters and all of the wild encounters were random, and that was practically it. There wasn't really anything else you could customize, like options, about the game modes. However, when we eventually get these game modes in Loomian Legacy in the future, I would like it if there were more options that we could turn off and on, depending on what the player actually wants, and then that would give these game modes way more playability, and that would actually make them even more enjoyable. Okay, so starting off with the Nuzlocke mode, first, I think that some rules should still be enforced. Like if your Loomian faints, they're basically dead, you can't use them anymore. You can only catch the first encounter on each route, and I guess we could make it so that you have to nickname all of your Loomians, which would be a classic Nuzlocke modes. But on top of these enforced rules, it would be cool if we had more options that would make it more enjoyable to play this game mode, or even harder for the less casual players, such as being able to turn off overleveling. So let's say for this specific option, if you turn it on so you can't overlevel, every battle theatre will have a level cap, so you can't go above that level until you're beating the battle theatre, making it a little bit more harder. Then we could have other options like be able to change the battles to a set battle mode rather than a switch battle mode, which would make it so that with the set battle mode, you can't switch after killing the Loomian, you can only switch during the turns, which is a little bit more risky because the opponent Loomian can then still hit you. And I guess a pretty common option for like the more competitive players would be for like to turn off the battle items, like stuff like meds, you can't use them in battles, or maybe even turn off held items so you can't run like health amulets, or stuff like drop of use, which would make it even harder. And finally, the last thing I could think about was making it so that the game would actually pick your starter for you instead of you choosing. So for me, also I would pick Weevil, but maybe the game is like, nah, you can have an Eaglet instead, and then I'm kind of stuck with an Eaglet. I have to run with an Eaglet. I think having these options will make the game mode a lot harder since, to be fair, a normal Nuzlocke wouldn't be that challenging for a lot of players, especially these days, so having these options will make it a lot harder, but also adding more options would make it, I think, more enjoyable, rather than having the same game mode over and over again. For the Randomizer mode then, like I mentioned before in Brick Bronze, it forced all of your starters and all of the wild encounters that you got to be random. However, if we had more options, I think nothing should really be enforced in a Randomizer mode. I would make it so everything is customizable. So personally, I would like the ability to choose from these options if we had a Randomizer mode, which would be to have also random starters, but to go even a step further and make it so we could actually set a specific starter that we want to use. So for example, if I enable this option, I could start with a Twilight if I wanted to, and then I could make it so all of the other options are turned off, so I can actually play the game normally, just that my starter is a Twilight. And then also people can do like challenge videos like, oh, I beat Loomian Legacy with only a Twilight, which I think would be kind of cool. Then we could have other options also then to make the wild encounters random, then the trainer Loomians random, and even then the Battlestar Loomians random, but having them all as different options, so you can choose what you want to be randomized and what you don't want to be randomized. And then I started thinking about other options that might be a little bit overboard, but having them as options could be cool, so things like the item boxes around the map could be randomized, so you could get anything from them, like a normal disc, to a really good item like health amulets, or even a move manual like something like Fire Breath or Rejuvenate. Then I had the idea of having the option to change the Loomians themselves, so things like randomizing the learn set, so they learn completely random moves when they level up, and maybe even be able to learn random move manuals, or maybe even having the option to have the abilities be completely random. And then I went even further than that and I started thinking about things like having random evolutions. So if you were to evolve your Cathon, instead of it becoming a Prope, it could become any Loomian in the game, for example, a Protagon. Or even having the option for the typings to be completely random. However, for this option, it could get out of hand very quickly and could become very confusing. So I think for this specific option, if you were to battle, for example, a Luminami and you find out, oh, it's a Dark Brawler typing, the game will then lock that typing for that specific Loomian. So every time you find a Luminami in the future, they will all have that same typing. In this case, they would all be Dark Brawler types. And that's everything I could think of for both a Nuzlocke mode and a Randomizer mode. Like I said before, a lot of people have talked about these game modes being a possibility in the far future, but if we are going to get these game modes in Loomian Legacy, personally, I would want them to have a little, or I guess in the case of the Randomizer mode, a lot more options to really customize the games to your own preference. And that's basically it, so hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.